The old County Road 13 was closed for construction, forcing Chloe, Mark, and his younger brother Liam to take a detour. The GPS suggested a more efficient route that snaked away from the main highway and into a patchwork of forgotten back roads. "Are you sure this is right, Mark?" Chloe asked from the passenger seat, peering at the dense pine forest pressing in on both sides. "This feels off." "It's fine," Mark said, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel of the SUV. "The GPS knows what it's doing. Besides, it's an adventure straight to a budget motel." Liam grumbled from the back, not looking up from his phone. "No service. Again, this is a black hole." The sun was dipping below the tree line, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple. But down on the road, the world was already sinking into deep blue twilight. That's when they saw it, a makeshift barricade of a fallen log and a road closed sign, partially covered in ivy. "Great, just great," Mark sighed, stopping the car. Before they could decide to turn back, a loud bang echoed through the woods, followed by the immediate and sickening lurch of the SUV. The vehicle sagged to the right. No, no, no. Mark jumped out, his worst fears confirmed. The front passenger tire was completely shredded, its rubber torn by a vicious-looking rusty spike that was welded to a metal plate, half hidden in the dirt and leaves. It wasn't an accident. It was a trap. As they stood there, staring at the sabotage tire, a beat-up pickup truck, its paint a faded red and its headlights like yellow, sick eyes, rumbled out from a hidden trail. A man got out. He was tall and lanky, dressed in worn-out overalls over a stained thermal shirt. His name, he said, was Jed. He had a friendly, drawling voice, but his eyes were as still and dark as a pond at midnight. "Looks like you folks found some trouble," Jed said, his lips stretching into a wide smile that showed too many teeth. "Old logging crews leave all sorts of junk around here. Nasty business." He was too helpful, too eager. He insisted they couldn't stay here, that the woods weren't safe after dark. He offered them a ride to his place, just down the road, to use the phone. "Ma has a landline," he said, the smile never wavering. The trio exchanged uneasy glances. Everything about this screamed wrong. But the thought of being stranded on this dark, deserted road was worse. Reluctantly, they agreed. Jed's place was a dilapidated farmhouse at the end of a long, overgrown driveway. The porch sagged, and the windows were dark. An old, rusted swing set stood crookedly in the front yard. As they got out of the truck, Chloe's breath hitched. Hanging from the porch roof was a collection of wind chimes, made from what looked like animal bones and flattened tin cans. They clinked together in the breeze with a hollow, mournful sound. The inside of the house was a tomb frozen in time, smelling of dust, mildew, and something faintly metallic. An elderly woman, Ma, sat in a rocking chair in the corner of the living room, a crocheted blanket over her lap. She didn't speak, just rocked slowly, her eyes vacant, her fingers working a knot of yarn. "I'll get the phone," Jed said, disappearing into a back hallway. Liam, trying to lighten the mood, nudged a small, hand-woven rug with his foot. Underneath, the floorboard was dark and stained, a stark contrast to the dusty wood around it. The stain was a deep, ugly brown. The shape was unmistakable. "Mark," Liam whispered, his voice tight. "We need to go. Now." Jed returned, empty-handed. The friendly facade was gone, sanded away to reveal the rusted metal beneath. "Trouble with the line," he said, his head tilting. "Storm must have knocked it out." In his right hand he casually held a long, heavy pipe wrench, its jaw caked with dark, flaky residue. "You know," Jed said, his smile finally twisting into something predatory, "we don't get many visitors out here. Ma gets so lonely." Mark acted first. He yelled, "Run," and shoved a side table into Jed's path. They burst out the front door and into the oppressive darkness of the property. The woods were a wall of blackness. "Split up," Mark yelled, the classic mistake born of pure panic. "Find the road. Go." Chloe and Liam veered left. Mark went right. Jed emerged from the house unhurried. He didn't run. He simply picked a direction and started walking, whistling a tuneless, off-key melody that cut through the night. Chloe and Liam stumbled through the undergrowth, thorns tearing at their clothes. They found a small, metal tool shed and scrambled inside, pulling the door shut. The only light came from a grimy window. They huddled in the dark, listening. The whistling grew closer, then stopped right outside. They heard the scratch of a match, and a moment later, the smell of smoke reached them. Jed was leaning against the shed, smoking a cigarette. "Y'all city folk are so loud." His voice came through the thin metal walls, calm and conversational. "You crash through the woods like a wounded deer. Me, I can walk through dry leaves and not make a sound." He took a long drag. "I like the hunt. It's the polite thing to do. Lets the meat tenderize with fear." He suddenly slammed the wrench against the shed door with a deafening clang. "Found you." Terrified, Chloe and Liam burst out the back of the shed, which gave way surprisingly easily. It was rotted. They ran blindly, Jed's laughter echoing behind them. They ran straight into Mark, who was hiding behind a large oak tree. He had a thick branch in his hands. "He's hurting us," Mark panted. "He knows this land. We're running in circles." They found themselves backing into a small clearing. In the center was the rusted swing set, and tied to one of the swings was a life-sized, faceless doll, its dress stained and torn. A friend for Ma. Jed stepped out from the trees in front of them, blocking their escape. The pipe wrench hung loosely at his side. "You should have stayed for dinner," he said, his voice losing its folksy charm, becoming flat and dead. "Ma does all the carving." Suddenly, headlights cut through the darkness. A state trooper's car, moving slowly down the main road, its spotlight sweeping the trees. They were closer to the road than they thought. Jed froze, his face a mask of fury and frustration. The spell was broken. "The road! Go!" Mark screamed. They didn't look back. They ran toward the lights, screaming and waving their arms. The trooper's car screeched to a halt. When they finally dared to look back, gasping for breath on the asphalt, Jed was gone, vanished back into the darkness of his woods. The only thing left was the faint, lingering smell of his cigarette smoke and the memory of his rusted smile. As the trooper called for backup, Chloe stared into the impenetrable blackness of the forest. She knew. He was still in there, waiting, whistling his tuneless song, and the bone wind chimes were still clinking, a promise that the hunt was never truly over.